good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am one of your hosts for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V, but I am joined by my co-host here,
Cody Stoffer. And yeah, that's right. We still record episodes together every once in a while. And by every once in a while, I mean once. But either way, we got some exciting stuff to talk about on this one, if not the most exciting position to talk about in all of football. Ain't that right, Simon?
Yes, absolutely. We are wrapping up our top 5 senior series here. Make sure you check out all of our other ones that we've recorded before here. I think this should be our last one, and we are going to be talking about the top 5 senior quarterbacks in Colorado in this class of 2025. As of today, it is January 3rd, 2025 when we are recording this. So if there's any news that we have missed leading up to when this episode is released, there you go, just so you know there. But let me go ahead and talk about our rubric here. This is our most detailed rubric to date. Over the years, we have continued to refine our rubric so that we can evaluate these players appropriately, looking for specific things and whatnot. And on this rubric, all the points add up to 100, but there are only 2 categories that are worth 10. The rest are worth 5 here, as there is a lot of things to keep in mind when evaluating quarterbacks, but the 2 that are worth 10 right now is frame and timing, and then we have a whole bunch of other ones worth 5, and that is arm velocity, which is just spin, spiral, arm power, ability to throw deep comfortably, short accuracy, medium and deep accuracy, lower body mechanics, upper body mechanics, decision making in structure, and then decision making out of structure. We have straight line speed, agility, throw on the run power, and then throw on the run accuracy. We have pocket awareness, pocket movement, and then scheme versatility, as in what schemes can they fit into, as a lot of these players, they have a bunch of different athletic abilities, physical abilities that will translate differently in different schemes here. And just being versatile in general is important when playing quarterback, especially when looking to move on to the next level, and especially when also considering that the transfer portal is a big thing now. You have that new JUCO law in effect. To be versatile in a scheme is big time. So there you go there. All of those points, they add up to a total of 100, but we each individually, as in myself, Cody, and Mason, grade out these quarterbacks individually and give them we all have different opinions, so we give them grades that we feel like they deserve. All these quarterbacks we have all seen live, and I think we've been saying this with all of these seniors we've talked about, but this group of players here specifically, some of them we've been watching since their freshman year, starting on varsity and doing their thing, so we've been able to watch them progress and get better off season and season in here throughout the year, so we're very familiar with all of that. But once we all grade them individually, then we go ahead and average that out. That is your PMC grade that we will be talking about. And obviously, the higher the PMC grade, the higher that player is ranked here in our top 5. But like I said, we all have different opinions. I think this really helps us, give diverse analysis and really, look at these players from as many different views as possible by us 3 all evaluating them and having different things that we are looking for as well when grading them out. And so myself and Cody will go ahead and make sure to list out Mason's reasons and grades as we go on here, as well as each other's, or I guess our own, in this one. But yeah, that's how it'll go down here. It was really close. Cody, is there anything you wanted to add before we move on?
I mean, there is a lot of guys to consider on this list for this year. And, I think that every single decimal point really mattered in this year. So I'm really glad that we have the rubric that we have, and it has the thoroughness that it does. And yeah, I think that you're going to get, we do have a lot of different opinions. I think that quarterback, it only makes sense, is, the most polarizing position. It's the most important position. So people are going to evaluate it differently based on philosophy, experience, and all that stuff. And I think it's going to, check out. But I think at the end of the day, despite us maybe grading categories differently or perceiving categories differently, we saw pretty eye to eye on these quarterbacks that made it and even the quarterbacks that were right off, they were kind of all in the same-ish ballpark as far as ranking for the most part. So, those final scores and the way that it checks out as far as how we feel about them as a prospect, I think we're pretty consistent. So, if there's nothing else that you want to add on, I can even kick us off here and start talking about this number 5 guy.
Yeah, go for it. Go ahead and talk about our number 5 quarterback in Colorado in this class of 2025.
Yep, and like Coach V said, you want to talk about stories, you want to talk about seeing a career all the way through. Well, this guy is a 4-year starter here at the number 5 spot for senior quarterbacks in this class of 2025 here in Colorado. And that is also our first 1A quarterback in top 5 evaluation history. If you pay enough attention to us, you should know who it is now. But the reveal is Casey Midcap out of Ray, Colorado here. He overall graded out to an average score of, after all three of us combined our scores, to an 80 flat. And I believe that is going to be reflected in his commitment here. But we'll let Simon talk about that later after talking about some of these evaluations here. And I'm actually going to open up with Mason here, who saw him both as a sophomore in the state game and also as a senior in the state game in a weird twist of events. And it's interesting to watch because he says, quote, "First things first, I don't particularly like the system he is within. That being said, he's a D1 guy based on his intangibles. He makes things happen, and as seen in the state championship, he has a high motor and can get it done. I like his ability to work the field, and he's not afraid of contact." He put in parenthesis, he literally blocks for his running back on their power play. He's a get-it-done type of player, and I'm very impressed with his game year 1, redshirt, and then depending on his development, he might be able to start year 2, is Mason's outlook, end quote. And so when we look at some of Mason's grades here, he had a lot of 4s across the board, which checks out. Mason's overall grade was an 80. When you take a score that's a 4 out of 5 and you make it out of 10, it's an 8 out of 10, right? So it kind of checks out here, and that's felt in his frame at an 8. His arm velocity at a 4. I'm just going to say the categories that he has graded at a 4 flat because there's so many of them. Arm velocity, short accuracy, medium accuracy, deep accuracy, lower body mechanics, and pocket awareness, as well as scheme versatility. And then he has even more rated at a 4.1. And in the arm power category, the upper body mechanics category, the agility category here. But his highest grades were his throw on the run accuracy and his decision making out of structure, both at a 4.3 here. Some things that it looks like Mason did not rate as high were the timing of Casey Midcap at a 7.5, and then his speed at a 3.8, and his throw on the run power at a 3.8, along with his pocket movement. So taking all of that into mind and then turning the page into mind, we're going to get some similar stories and some different stories here. I definitely think that his pocket movement is something that he could definitely work on. There's a specific play that I have in mind where he just kind of keeps fading back. Simon, you probably know exactly which one I'm talking about. It's at Ray's home field. And I mean, this dude ends up like 12 to 13 yards behind the line of scrimmage before he ends up making a crazy throw that's complete. But yeah, he definitely could work on climbing the pocket a bit more and just maneuvering it a bit more to his strength. His arm power is one of my other lower rated ones, but it's not that lowly rated. It's at a 3.9. I just think that there's room for improvement to develop his arm power, and his speed as well. I also graded at a 3.7, but I don't want people to think that means that he can't run the football, because if there's something that Casey Midcap could do, it's run. And it's not putting the speed or the zoom on the field. It's putting his freaking shoulder down and just ramming through defenders. He falls forward every single time. And, something else that I think complements his ability to run, I have his agility rated at a 4.1. I think he's pretty maneuverable. But things that I found impressive about his game were, at least in my perspective, his velocity, his accuracy kind of across the board, I have rated at a 4, with his medium accuracy at a 4.2. And I think that his timing on those intermediate and short throws was actually pretty good. It impressed me a little bit. I graded it at an 8.2. And I think that his mechanics are way ahead. A lot of these guys, some of these guys in 4A and 5A, who live in the metro area. Meanwhile, Casey lives in Ray, Colorado. That's not by anything and has stronger mechanics. 4 on his lower body mechanics, 4.1 on his upper body mechanics. I'm a fan of his decision making, and I think that something that I like to see is just his chops in the short game and throwing his receivers open and his quick decision making in structure and getting the ball out quick. I think that his velocity makes that possible, his ability to read the field, and also just, leading those guys a little bit. I will say his timing, it's not as high as some of these other guys on this list because I don't think that he leads as well downfield. But his deep accuracy still gets it done. I still have it graded at a 4 out of 5. And overall, I mean, there's just a lot to like here. As far as, his career goes, it's been so fun covering it because, we talked about it on the awards episode, so you should double back. Spoiler alert, he ended up winning the Most Valuable Playmaker award for this past season, but it came full circle because he won our Newcomer of the Year award the very first year that we ever did awards. So he was voted Freshman of the Year on the 1A classification. He just won Most Valuable Playmaker on the 1A classification, and he just became the first 1A quarterback to make a top 5 senior list here. So, looking back at his career in retrospect, obviously, I want to give him his flowers, give him his shout out, and just let y'all know what he did to earn those, nominations and whatnot. As a freshman, he threw 8 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, threw for over 1,000 yards, and ran for another 380 while tacking on 3 touchdowns. Very impressive. And it just comes to show that if you have the talent at the freshman position, that you should play it. And I think that compared to when we started, and Simon, I know I'm giving you a lot to respond to once it's finally your turn, but, there was a lot of, I guess, like fear or hesitancy to play freshman quarterbacks, especially the first 2 or 3 years that we did this. And so to see Casey Midcap's career come full circle where he, has over 7,000 scrimmage yards between passing and rushing, and this past season had 43 total touchdowns with 1,500 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards. And, just seeing his decision-making grow through the years where, he kind of had a sophomore slump, and then his junior year kind of just matched his, freshman quarterback output while becoming a lot better of a runner. And then he just rounded into a complete player with good decision-making. 22 touchdowns to just 1 pick his senior year. I mean, that's impressive no matter where you go. And, watching the film and seeing what he was doing to opponents and knowing that he was also a two-way player playing with this gas tank and making plays on the defensive side of the ball, I think just really makes this special. And it's a huge testament to 1A football culture in Colorado that, there's great coaching on that classification, and there's just great football as well. And Casey Midcap, I think, is a great poster child to represent that and just our coverage of 1A football over the past 4 years and just how much fun it really has been. Coach V, I'll let you talk about your analysis. I'll let you talk about what his future plans are and just kind of react to his career and our coverage of him over the past few years.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and talk about my grades first for Casey here. So at frame, I gave him an 8, stating at 6'2", 185 pounds. He's definitely stronger than that frame, in my opinion, but he could still fill out. It's about average for your average 3-star quarterback, though, in my opinion. Arm velocity, 4.1. Arm power, 4.15. I gave him 4s in all of the accuracy, short, medium, and deep. I feel like he's a very consistent passer. He's not going to make, or at least I haven't seen him make the craziest throws like all the time, but he'll make the right play, right? And I mean, you can't argue with that. I think he definitely sets the bar when it comes to accuracy and whatnot. Nothing too crazy, but I mean, he's also consistent enough where he's going to hit open targets. Timing 7.5. I think it could be a little bit more improved honestly. But Ray is also, I'm just gonna throw some context out there. They're a team who had a great running back in Samuel Meisner, and have always had a great running game in general, honestly. So I don't know if that affects just the lack of reps there in game with the timing and whatnot, but I expect that to go up, honestly. Lower body mechanics is a 4. Upper body mechanics 4.2, actually 4.2 for upper body mechanics, decision making and structure and out of structure. Speed 3.9, agility 4.2, throw on the run 3.8, throw on the run accuracy, so power was 3.8 and then accuracy was 4.3. Pocket awareness 4, as well as scheme versatility, and then pocket movement was a 3.7 for an overall grade of an 80.25. Before we get into the narratives and all that stuff, I think just evaluating his film, I mean, we've been able to watch him for 4 years. I got to watch him live just twice because I'm not going to drive up to Ray all the time and whatnot, but I got to see him in state against a very good Lyman defense, and then I got to see him in state again against a Forge Christian team who is a very hot here, so I got to watch him plenty in big time games, and honestly, look, he's come a long way. He was obviously our newcomer of the year winner, but he did not settle for that. He got better each year, and you gotta love that. He, in my opinion, is a very slippery athlete. On this level, he's a rushing threat. I don't think it's going to translate to him being a rushing threat on the college level, but he's still going to be somebody who's going to be hard to bring down. He would be a good scout team guy for sure, just, emulating some things that some more improvising type of quarterbacks could do and whatnot. But I think that mobility is definitely going to translate in the way that he'll be tough to bring down. And then he also has a solid arm, which I think continues to improve as his mechanics improve. I think from junior to senior year, there was a pretty good jump there, which I really like. On top of that, he's very decisive as a quarterback. He gets the ball out quick, does it efficiently. I do think he's somebody that's going to take some time to develop here. As far as mechanics go, he could still get better. I think sometimes he just throws with a really wide base, and that could be improved on. So there you go there. I think the lower body mechanics could definitely use more work than the upper body mechanics, but he's not in a bad spot. Like I said, I gave him a 4 for versatility, scheme versatility, because I think he's at a point where, with Casey Midcap, you have a good athlete, you have someone who can make tacklers miss, could extend plays, and he's decisive, right? Also has a pretty good arm and has shown the ability to continue to get better as off seasons and seasons go on, and that's why he earned the scholarship to go play at where he is committed to because of the hard work he has put in here. And so altogether, I think he's a very well-rounded quarterback here, and honestly, him winning it all at state, I know Mason said he didn't like the scheme with him blocking, but to be fair, they were just up by so much against Forge. I mean, it would have been foolish to throw the ball, so I understand them just running the ball a whole ton and whatnot. That made sense to me, but he's been able to make some big throws when it mattered. Like in state, he's made a couple big throws against Forge, that is. Against Lyman, I know there was one throw that I really loved. I want to say it was in the first quarter that got them on the board, if I'm not mistaken there. And then there was another throw that he made kind of down the stretch. I mean, the game kind of got away from them, and it was down the right sideline, and I'll never forget it because the receiver definitely kind of pulled up, and we all had the same reaction of like, dude, just I know you're getting like blasted right now in the second half, but you got to keep running for that one. But it was still a throw that was going to be on the money regardless. And so we've been able to see him step up, make those big time plays. And I think that's going to translate just that clutchness and that decisiveness to the next level here. And obviously we're all rooting for him, but, Cody, if you don't have anything more to add, do you mind if we go ahead and talk about where he will be going next here?
Yeah, how far does a 1A quarterback get these days, Coach V?
Yeah, so he'll be going to Drake. He committed there, and I believe he is, in this class, I want to say he's the first 1A athlete playing football, that is, to be committed to a D1 school in Drake. So he'll be going there. He committed pretty early, pretty quickly, right after they offered, I want to say. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that he committed pretty quickly, which, I mean, is a smart move nowadays. And so he'll be able to go over there. It's an FCS school. I know they've been kind of down on their luck the last couple years and whatnot, but at the very least, that at least sets the bar a little bit lower and give him some time to develop as they figure out what they want to do. I legitimately think that he's somebody that's going to have to sit. I mean, you might as well redshirt, sit, learn the playbook, get used to the speed of the game, and then, give it 2 or so years, and he could be a multi-year starter for an FCS like that. But they got to develop him correctly. They got to really have him fit his scheme. But, he's somebody that's going to go there and compete. He's always done that, all 4 years of high school, playing at a high level. And I have no doubts that he's going to go over there and compete and bring a championship mentality to a program that, honestly needs some positivity and some winning mentality to go around. Right, Cody?
Yeah. And I think that, the mental toughness growth that we've seen, even from one state championship to the next, over the course of that 2 years, I think that he's in a great spot to compete. And I think that, at the end of the day, it is cliche to say, right? But dude's a football player, right? And he's going to stick it out, and he's going to be tough, and, he sticks to it. He'll find a way onto the field. So, and I think that he's going to do what he needs to do. And obviously he's coachable, right? We can tell that based off of his growth over the past few years. So, I think that the future is very, very bright for the young mid-cap that we've been able to cover literally from the start of the story to the end. And that's pretty cool, man.
Well, if you don't have anything more to add, I definitely don't have anything more to add. We'll be rooting for Casey Midcap over there at Drake, and hopefully get to see him play here in a couple years. But it's been great covering his career. But with all that being said, Cody, are you good if I go ahead and talk about the number 4 quarterback in this class?
Run away with it.
All right, so the number 4 quarterback in the class of 2025 here in Colorado is Mesa Ridge's very own Bryce Real, the 6'1", 180-pound quarterback. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. He's in the middle of his basketball season. He is a multiple-time state champion in basketball, and I assume that is probably going to be his main sport on the next level. But, we talk about the best of the best quarterbacks in this group, and I mean the best of the best players here in Colorado and the country, and so we had to go ahead and take a look at Bryce Real, and he graded out very well. He took a pretty solid jump from junior to senior year. I mean, he's been improving ever since he started as a sophomore, and I've got to watch him many times. I feel like a lot of them were against Montrose, and he cooked them every time he played them, so shout out Bryce Real over there. But let's just go ahead and get into the grades and then the evaluation here. Let's start with Amazins, actually. So, starting with frame, he gave him a 7.5, arm velocity 4.2, arm power 4, short accuracy 4.2, medium 4, deep accuracy 4.3, timing is an 8, lower body mechanics 4.1, upper body mechanics 3.6, 4.1 in decision making in structure, 4.3 in decision making out of structure, 4.1 speed, 4.5 agility, 4.1 throw on the run power. Accuracy on the run is a 4, pocket awareness 4.2, pocket movement 3.2, and then scheme versatility 4.2 for a grade of an 80.6 here. This is what Mason had to say about Bryce Real, who I believe was his 4th best quarterback out of all the ones that he graded, but he said he's very raw, and with some refinement, he could be very good. Seems to trust his receivers a lot. Great wide receiver room over at Mesa, but that can lead to problems down the road. Has a good arm and a strong arm at that. I want to see him not hold on to the ball so much and work on going through progressions more. He only seems to throw to his first or second read. Overall, D2 player after redshirting. He will be a great rotational guy, year 3 starter, in my opinion. Now, for me, this is what my grades for Bryce Real look like. I gave him a 7.5 for frame here. He's 6'1", 180. I kind of feel like he is maybe a little bit smaller than that, or at least lighter than that. So that's just my opinion, but definitely a frame to grow into though still. Arm velocity, 4.25, arm power 4.1, short accuracy 4.3, medium 4.1, deep 4.2, timing 8.2, lower body mechanics 4.35, upper body is 3.7, decision making in structures of 4.2, out of structures of 4.3, speed of 4.2, agility of 4.6, throw on the run 4, throw on the run accuracy 4.2, pocket awareness 4.35, pocket movement 3.5, and scheme versus versatility of 4.25 for an overall grade of an 82.3. Look, I mean, Bryce Rue, I've been able to watch him for a really long time, I feel like since 2022, and he's always been a great athlete, and I knew if he could figure it out on the football field, he could be dangerous. And in my opinion, his senior year was his breakout year where I believe that he showed his ability to play football at the next level and be a good player on that next level at that. He's a dual threat who will be a rushing threat, in my opinion, on the next level. I think his athleticism really translates well. I mean, oh my God, I think there is one play that he had. This was against Heritage. It wasn't Montrose. They were a team in red, but it was against Heritage where he got the ball, juked out a couple players, and then he just took off down the left sideline for a 70-yard rushing touchdown and ran right in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, he's just that guy when it comes to athleticism, speed, agility. He's going to be hard to bring down, and he's going to be somebody that could definitely run the ball on the next level. The elusiveness specifically makes him very difficult to catch here, just in the pocket and whatnot. So he's going to be able to extend plays, but like I said, he's an absolute threat on the ground. And then as a thrower, I think his lower body mechanics look good for somebody who's, I feel like, always on the move. His upper body mechanics could use some work here, just looking at his release and the overall fluidity of it. But regardless, he gets the ball out quick. He is shown on multiple occasions to be great when throwing downfield on the run and whatnot. And in my opinion, what's even more impressive is that he's throwing off platform almost all the time. Because, I mean, the line isn't the best over there at Mesa Ridge, and really hasn't been. I think this year was probably the best it's been in a while here. But, his ability to throw off platform makes him absolutely lethal. He's going to draw a lot of attention because of his running ability, but he can definitely throw dots in pretty uncomfortable positions here. In my opinion, I think he could play on the FCS level with some development. At worst, he's a D2, but what you got to know about Bryce Reel is that he's an absolute winner. He's a state champion in basketball. He got really close in football, and, he led Mesa Ridge to a very successful 3 seasons here, I would say. A lot of winning over there, which is something that they haven't seen as much if you go back just a couple more seasons and whatnot. But, he's been able to do a lot over there at Mesa Ridge and has seen the rise of this program down in the Springs because of how well he has played. And, I got to shout out Gino as well before I hand it off to you, Cody, but he got to see probably one of his signature games against Palmer Ridge in Monument, I want to say, where they were down and Bryce Reel led them back and won them that game. And, that type of ability, just the composure, the physical ability, all of that is why a college should recruit him as a quarterback. If he chooses to play, I think he's probably going to play basketball, right? He's a great hooper. Shout out my guy over at Palmer. He's the head basketball coach over them. Bryce Reel gives him a lot of fits, and that's a good Palmer team over there. But there's so much respect for him here in this community down in the Springs because of how good of a guy he is, how good of a leader he is, and just how big and how great of a winner he is. That's the big thing that's important here when it comes to looking at Bryce Reel as a prospect, as well as everything I just talked about. But Cody, why don't you go ahead and talk about some of that stuff, and what do you think about what myself and Mason had to say about Bryce Reel here?
Yeah, I think that the thing that we talked about a little bit before the show, and the thing that jumped out to me the most, was his decision-making out of structure. It is actually the highest grade that I gave any of the prospects here. in this top 5, and it might have even been the highest grade I gave any of the prospects that I evaluated. I gave his decision-making out of structure a 4.45. His ability to keep his head on a swivel and keep his head on straight too, despite the insane pressure he was feeling, was nothing short of impressive. It was just phenomenal, and it blew me away constantly. Your and I's short accuracy score, both pretty close here. I got it at a 4.4. I know that Mason had that graded pretty high at that 4.2 as well. And, his agility, I mean, this dude is absurd to try and keep track of. And that is one of the highest rated categories I had for him. I mean, he's knocking on that 4-star door with some of these skills, that he has. And he has a lot of things that I quite enjoy. And I couldn't even really grade a ton of his game super duper low. I will talk about what I was able to, but I mean, a ton of these scores are over 4s. 4.2 deep accuracy, 4.2 lower body mechanics, 4.2 decision-making in structure. I think that I loved watching him run the RPO. And, I mean, it just felt like he was doing the right thing every single time they ran it. And he was doing it fast enough where they really weren't risking like a legal man downfield, which is so easy to do as a high school. I mean, it's easy to do as a college quarterback, right? When you're running the RPO, and let your linemen get too far down the field because you don't pull the trigger fast enough. That's not really a concern with him. And, I think that he's got a lot of things going for him here. And, it'll be interesting to see what he does on the next level. But I'll just agree with Mason a little bit here. Not in love with his relationship with the pocket. I know that we talked about that his pocket was kind of non-existent in spurts, but I also feel like he would get surprised by pressure quite a bit looking through his film. It's one of the lower categories I have graded out of anything here. I have his pocket awareness at a 2.45. If you double that, that gets up to a 4.9. I feel like he was pretty oblivious a lot of the time, and was luckily his fast twitch was doing a lot of work there. And, I'd say his pocket movement, I also had graded kind of low at a 3.55. And it's like when I feel like because of how much pressure he was facing, if there ever was a lane to step up, he was still just breaking outside of the pocket because that was the habit that was formed. And that is something that I think would have to kind of be worked on once he's moved on to that next level. So those are some things that I think he could work on a little bit. I think that his arm power is pretty good, but I don't know. I didn't see the zip as much, honestly. I think that he was using a lot of arc to push that ball kind of down the field, and I just didn't see like smoke coming off the ball as much in my evaluation. But it was still graded out to a 2-star level, so nothing like crazy egregious here. And then I think that because of the pressure that he was constantly facing, that his timing was just not going to be as good as it could have looked. It's still graded at a 7.9. It's knocking on that 3-star door for me, but I just think when you're running for your life all the time, it's going to be hard to orient and just, hit your receivers in stride when there's so many broken plays. But he does do it with, like I said, the RPO very, very well. And that's why it's not, it's not an abysmal grade by any means. It is just something that I think will have to come with time and trust if he continues to play on the gridiron here. So overall, I graded him at a 79.9. And when you look at Mason with the 80.6 and Coach V with the 82.3, that puts him at an 80.93 repeating overall grade here. Coach V, you kind of talked about it a little bit here. He's in basketball season right now. We know that he has interest on the next level, but it's not, I don't think that there's going to be really any action that we should see from that kind of until basketball season starts to wind down a little bit or as we get closer to February, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to commit. I honestly don't think he's going to commit to play football. If anything, it would be some sort of deal where he gets partial scholarships for both hoops and football and does both. I know Well, I don't know if this is his brother. I think they're at least related. Tevin Real. He was a great safety for them the last couple years for Mesa Ridge. He's over at Colorado Mesa. He's there right now. But, regardless, I think he is probably a guy with D1 upside that'll end up at a D2 as far as football goes. Just the athleticism, you can't teach that. Just being honest with you. And, the scheme that he ran in high school, I think, is something that could also translate to different schemes on the next level. Being a good athlete, there's just things that you're going to be able to do better than guys who are maybe, more experienced quarterbacks, but are just never going to get there as an athlete. And so, he's going to get his opportunities. We'll see what happens this season. I know Mesa Ridge, they are kind of rolling right now here, which is, no surprise to anybody in basketball. So we'll just have to see what happens from here on out. But regardless, I think there's no doubt that he's one of the best quarterbacks in this class, one of the most gifted ones. And honestly, for somebody that is playing this sport, arguably as his second sport, that is extremely impressive. So we'll just have to see what happens. But regardless, he's a college level athlete. There's no doubt about it. Whether it's football, basketball, he's going to figure it out, go over there, do his thing. And, we'll be rooting from him from here like we have been for a minute now. So, yeah. There you go. That's Bryce Real there. Cody, is there anything else you want to add on to Bryce Real? And by the way, I agree with a lot with what you had to say. I don't want to keep bashing on the offensive line because I do think there were some good players on there this season. And, this was probably the best line he's had in his entire career. But I would have to agree that some of the bad habits that he had of just rolling out, running, or just rolling out and throwing the ball, it did not add up to the best pocket movement where he could have just stepped up and, do the check down or whatever, right? So I will agree with that, but that could definitely be fixed though.
Yeah, based off his play, I don't think he's like traumatized, to the point of like not being fixed. But yeah, no, there's you could see the reasons why, you know what I mean? Like it adds up pretty easily when you just look. You just look at the film, you just watch the game. You're like, yeah, no, that makes sense to develop those habits. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Wait, before we hopped on, didn't you say that like literally tonight he was putting up mad numbers though in a hoops game?
I don't think that was tonight. That it was listed December 29th. Someone posted him scoring 18 of his 25 points. I think these are all threes.
That's so foul. In like
these
the
are
fourth
literally
quarter,
all
right?
threes. Oh my god!
Oh, that's cold. Sorry, I had to bring that back up.
Yeah,
but
and it's against Rampart, which is a solid. I think they're a solid program. So yeah, but enough of hoops. Bryce Real, rooting for him. Great athlete, great leader. And we'll just have to see what happens. I'm excited for his future. I think it could be really bright. The best is definitely ahead of him. So there you go there. But that's our fourth best quarterback here in the class of 2025. Let's go ahead and move on to our third best quarterback here in the class of 2025. And by the way, all these grades were really close here. But the third best quarterback here in this class of 2025 is Horizon's very own Alex Birch here. He is another player who's been playing since his freshman year. I don't think he won Newcomer of the Year because this was back when Beckham Kritza was in the state. So there's that as well. But the 5'10", 180-pound quarterback played for Horizon, and he had a great career over there. And, Horizon's not exactly... I wouldn't call them a football school necessarily. They're on the 5A level. You kind of feel more of a team that could probably be more classified as a 4A team, but, numbers and whatnot, they playing 5A comp. But Alex Birch, he made the best of it. And from day one, we knew that he was somebody that, had a lot of composure to him. And before we get into all the narratives, let me just go down the line and go over my grades and then Mason's grades here real quick here. But frame, I gave him a 5.5. He's listed at 5'10", 180 pounds. questionable. Love you, Alex, but definitely questionable
Just a little.
for sure. Yeah. Arm velocity, though, 4.2. Arm power, 4. Short accuracy, though, definitely a 4.5. Medium, 4.2. Deep accuracy, 4.1. Timing, though, 8.7. Out of everyone we've talked about so far here, there's only one other guy with better timing, which we'll talk about later, than Alex Birch, but his timing is excellent. Lower body mechanics, 4.35. Upper body mechanics, 4.5. I love his mechanics. Super smooth thrower of the football. There's not really much more that you could want from that. Decision making in structure was a 4.15. Out of structure, 4.5. Takes care of the ball very well. Speed, 4.1. Agility, 4.4. Throw on the run power, 3.5. Throw on the run accuracy, 4.3. Pocket awareness, 4.3. Pocket movement, 3.7. And then scheme versatility for a 4.25, for an overall grade of an 81.35. For Mason, he gave Alex Birch the same grade that I gave him, a 5.5 for frame. Arm velocity, 4.2. Arm power, 4. Short accuracy, 4.6. Medium, 4.3. Deep, 4.2. Timing, 8.6. Lower body mechanics, 4.3. Upper body, 4.5. Decision making in structures, a 4.2. Out of structures, not too far behind, or in front of it, I guess. At a 4.3, it's actually better. Speed, 4. Agility, 4.5. Throw on the run power, 3.6. Throw on the run accuracy, 4.4. Pocket awareness, 4.5. Pocket movement, 3.5. And then scheme versatility for 4.3. This is what Mason had to say about Alex. He said, watched Alex a lot. He's a hard worker and has a great spin on the ball. If he was 6 foot or taller, he would have all the offers, but sadly he's not. I think as a quarterback, he has great vision and can make almost every throw. Lacks in the arm strength, but makes it up for with knowing his own strengths. Him playing for MHP, shout out Mile High Prep of the Prep Super League, showed me that he is way better than you realize from him at Horizon. If you put this guy in the right scheme, he might be the top guy on this list. D2 guy, and his School of Mines commitment, spoiler alert, thanks Mason, showed that he will be a year 2 rotational and year 3 starter in his opinion. And yeah, I gotta agree with that. But just talking about his game here, look, Alex Birch, super underrated and overlooked because of his frame, but there's no doubt that he is one of the more natural throwers of the football that is not only somebody that we've seen in this quarterback group, but in all the quarterbacks that we've evaluated. We really like his mechanics. What I like about Birch's game, though, is the fluidity that he throws that football and just the ability to get the ball out quick. No extra hitches or anything crazy, and I think he gets a lot out of his current mechanics. If he was a very Russell Wilson-esque, in my opinion, and I feel like I've been saying that for a pretty long time here. Throws with good anticipation, especially versus pressure. He's used to that and does a good job throwing against pressure. Compared to other quarterbacks around the state, he might be one of the best ones at that. But with that being said, I just don't think his arm power is crazy. Maybe if he put on weight and got stronger, his arm power could go up. But I think it's unfortunately just a little bit capped, especially with how good his mechanics are at this point. And so that will influence how he will play on the next level with faster defenders and tighter windows. But I still think he's a good athlete who's tough to bring down in 1v1. He's somebody who could definitely extend plays. And I wouldn't say maybe a rushing threat on the next level, but definitely somebody who could improvise a lot on the next level and make a lot of guys miss. And, who knows from there on. So there you go. I will have to agree with Mason. Seeing him play for MHP really put it into perspective how good he is with the right amount of talent around him. Obviously playing on the next level here, on the D2 level, he's going to have better players around him to combat some of those better athleticisms, and I think it'll all even out. But honestly, with where he's at right now, I think realistically he's a D2 starter, could develop into an FCS starter one day, but he's going to have to continue to put in some work here, which I don't doubt at all. I mean, this kid, he's somebody who works so hard. He's faced a lot of adversity through life and through football as well. I know he's had at least 2 different head coaches, maybe even 3 different head coaches in his time over at Horizon here. And, he's continued to perform and put Horizon in a position to win games, week in, week out. I feel like this year especially, there are a couple games where we're like, oh man, Horizon's kind of hanging in there against some pretty solid teams. I think one of those squads was Fountain Fort Carson, who is always a good team, honestly, even though they lose so many good players year in, year out. But, he was able to give them some scares, give a lot of teams scares throughout his years here in Colorado. And, he's been an underdog. I think he's always going to play with that underdog mentality of he's never going to back down. If you have him in the game, he's going to be able to make plays, and I think that's something you could believe in here. But just a great kid, very smooth thrower with the football, definitely somebody who could extend plays on the next level, and I think could develop into a very good football player, good starter on this D2 level. But Cody, you've been able to see Alex a lot here, whether it was with MHP. I don't think you got to see him for Horizon. I could be wrong though. Maybe you did get to watch him actually play for Horizon. I know I saw him play.
To see a Horizon game against Eagle Crest 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's not an even matchup, but yeah. And then shout out EPO, or what was EPO as well. We got to see him work out quite a bit there too. But Cody, what do you think of Alex Birch here and what me and Mason had to say here about him?
I think you guys hit the nail on the head, honestly, with a lot of these evaluations. I mean, his timing really just blows a lot of these other guys out of the water. I mean, Mason and I both sat in an 8.6. You had him at an 8.7. It is a very important category, and he just has a feel for the game. And I think that that's reflected in his accuracy downfield as well. His short accuracy, I gave a 4.45. That's right up there with you guys. And, I think that is mechanically speaking, he is at least my highest graded upper body mechanical thrower. I think that, maybe it's his frame and, being a bit smaller gives him more concise movements, more precise ones. But either way, it still clicks, right? And it still gets the job done. His medium accuracy, I also have graded at a 4.3. And, his decision-making in structure, 4.25. So, and I have a bunch of other 4 categories here. His pocket awareness, that is probably what was the most eye-opening part of Mile High prep for me, right? And it's funny because we were just talking about Bryce and, the situations that he was in and kind of how that reflected in his pocket grades. But, an opportunity like that maybe changes things. But, it showed that Birch understood pressure and he could feel pressure and he didn't always have to be running for his life all the time. Granted, he was capable of doing so, honestly. And that game that I saw, he was running for his life almost every single play and just hoping that Loomis could get open deep, honestly, which against a Eagle Crest secondary is easier said than done, right? So, that was that was a interesting game to watch, but he's a soldier, man. He is going to get smacked, and that's his frame is the lowest grade for me here, and it is the same for Mason and Simon, obviously. But I gave him just a couple extra points here. I do think that the frame we'll leave it up to speculation if it's as advertised. But something that is worth noting, I should say, is durability is a part of frame, right? So, obviously, if you're a 6'6", 240-pound Cam Newton quarterback, that is the perfect frame, right? But, if you have the injury tendencies of, I don't know, somebody who's, whatever, insert injury-prone player here, right? Then it doesn't really matter as much, right? But Birch, I mean, this dude has been getting rocked for 4 years. And I don't really remember him ever missing a game. Simon, you could correct me on that if I'm wrong, but he is like a true Iron Man of Colorado high school football, especially at the quarterback position. So, I think that is something to account for. He's not going to just, he's not gonna back down. Never back down, never what? That's the Alex Birch motto, and it's panned out for him pretty well, at least in the individual efforts. And you talked about the newcomer of the year thing, and it just reminded me that yeah, Beckham Kritza won newcomer of the year, but lest we forget, in the Fairview versus Horizon game, Birch actually outdueled Beckham Kritza, throwing for 380 yards and 2 touchdowns that day, which
That's
is
true. Yeah.
nuts. I remember being like, "What?" That's kind of what
Yeah.
opened my eyes to Alex Birch. Honestly, I was like, "What?"
And Beckham Kritza, he's committed to Penn State.
Yeah.
And it's a
So
4-star. He's also like 6'6", so like it sucks, because it shows a lot there, But I mean, he's the type. What's that saying go, Cody? Oh my gosh, that saying that goes like, sometimes you just got a prized fighter. You just got to put him in the ring, right? Let him go compete. Let him go stack up against somebody and see what happens. And they'll show you who they really are because of how hard they're going to compete and how much heart he has. Because you're right. He has taken, I mean, he's been like smacked around probably the most out of all the quarterbacks that we evaluated, not just the top 5 here, but all the quarterbacks we've looked at in this class. And, he finds a way to get back up, go make the next play. And that's something we love about him, is toughness, which isn't, I mean, it's something that you can't really measure. But when it comes down to it and you're in a tough spot, you could count on Alex Birch to find a way to get it done.
yeah, no, he battles. He's a gladiator, really, really. And I think that it's worth mentioning. This dude over his 4-year career threw for over 7,300 yards and 66 touchdowns, all the while just getting hammered left and right. And that's something too where he stands tall in the pocket. He doesn't roll over. He'll take an absolutely monster hit and deliver a dot. And I think that that's something that he does well. I think as far as things that he can improve on, at least in my opinion, I think that he could work on his power while throwing on the run. And it's interesting because I do think he's obviously completing these passes downfield out of structure, right? And so I'm not trying to detract from that. And I do think that I see what you and Mason are saying about being able to make those plays out of structure. But I will say that they do scare me a handful of the time where they are very, very risky throws. Obviously, he has faith, confidence in his receivers. He has the accuracy to get it done. But, I think that if somebody were to just do a little bit more prep and kind of, make sure that their safety is understood, I think that these passes are a lot more dangerous heading on to the college level as far as some of the out of structure plays that he was making down the field. So I'm just a little worried about that. I still gave it a 3.9, so he's still knocking on that 3-star upside of it. He, like I said, he's getting it to the guys here on the high school level. I just worry a little bit about it on the next level. And then obviously he's just going to have to play with a competent line a little bit more for that pocket movement to come along. But, Mason spoiled it earlier. And obviously this guy is very intelligent. And, I think that out of all the schools that he could have gone to, this program has a pretty decent line and has been known to be pretty nasty up front sometimes. Isn't that right, Simon?
Oh yeah. And I mean, he'll be going to the Colorado School of Mines. So first off, a great academic school. We've known Alex has had great grades and whatnot, and takes care of business off the field. That's never been a question, his character and whatnot off the field. But he's gonna get a good education there, and he's also going into a very good situation. I mean, that's a winning program. I know this year was a little bit of a down year, but that is as good a situation as you could hope for if you're Alex Birch, because don't get it twisted, they're still a top dog in D2. At least that's how we view them right now, right, Cody?
Oh, absolutely. And this move, I think, keeps them in that status, especially in the offense that they run. That's a lot of, they can run a lot of quick hitters and get down the field fast. And you got to be a smart quarterback to run this offense. And you got to be able to click in, click out, one play to the next, and fire that ball out and get it on target in the short game, in the medium game. That's like he's built for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, they do a good job recruiting year in, year out. So he's going to have weapons around him. I think what it's going to come down to is him competing against, his teammates, obviously, on that team, as they do recruit. They recruit very well. I know Joseph Capra, another quarterback that made our top 5 list a couple years ago, is, I believe, still currently on that roster. Yeah, he is. I'm pretty sure. And then, obviously you have the transfer portal and guys from out of state they're recruiting as well. And so he's going to have to fight for a spot. But, he's always just looked for an opportunity to go compete. That's who he is. He's a competitor. And I think this is as good as any to go in there, compete, and just see what happens here. And obviously, we'll be rooting for him. He's been a great supporter of the podcast. Obviously, we've been able to watch his career very closely, I feel, even at times where it just hasn't been great and whatnot. And that's not to bash on Horizon, because I just want to make this clear. He's had some good receivers over the years. I think this year he had some very good receivers, like a 6'6" tight end. He had another receiver who we are a little bit of a spoiler considering for our watch list as well, who will be a senior next year. He's had other great receivers in the past. Shout out Lucas Landon as well, or not Landon, Loomis. Yeah. Wait, yeah, Landon Loomis?
Yeah, Landon Loomis.
Cut that out.
Landon Loomis.
That's just making sure. But yeah, he's had some great. I knew I was right. But he's had some great receivers here. Just not the biggest. Definitely not the biggest offensive line, for sure. So they fight, but it is kind of what it is. So there you go there. But, Alex Birch, he's a competitor. He's somebody that you want in your locker room. He loves the game of football, student of the game and whatnot. And honestly, we're all really excited about him going over to the Colorado School of Mines. And I could pretty much guarantee it right here on the podcast, if this moment comes, that he gets his first start for Mines, obviously a home game, I'm absolutely there. No doubt about it. I'm sure, Cody, you are too.
Yes, sir. That's our guy.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's our guy. But that's Alex Birch just reading out here at our third best quarterback here in the class of 2025. But Cody, why don't you go ahead and talk about the number 2 guy here in this class?
Thank you for passing that over. And man, it's kind of fun getting to this point in our coverage career, because I feel like we got a little bit of background on all these guys, and this guy is no different here. And our number 2 quarterback is the eye-popping number monster of Frederick here, Gavin Ishmael here, the 6'2", 210-pound athlete here who knows how to get it done on a football field. And interestingly enough, I saw him in kind of a heartbreaker, actually. And during his sophomore year at Frederick, they were still running a wing tee, but his talent pushed and broke right through that his junior and senior year. But I actually saw him lose an absolute heartbreaker in the snow to George Washington for the league title. Gavin, sorry to make you relive that old wound here, but don't worry, I'm going to bounce back and talk about some things that I liked in his game here. So, with Gavin here, his arm power is definitely the thing that pops off, and his deep ball accuracy here. Coach V, you're going to hate my comparison here, but he definitely gives me some Josh Allen vibes sometimes here. With a 4.4 on arm power and a 4.4 on deep ball accuracy, he just, I would have loved to be his receiver back in the day, because he just throws guys open, and these cornerbacks, they seem like they're not expecting the ball to go that far, and they didn't do their homework knowing that they're going against one of the strongest arms in the state, if not the strongest as far as just throwing the ball down the field, honestly. He had the highest grade in that category for me. And, I want to say that he even had that highest grade for Mason, I'm pretty sure as well, who I'll talk about in just a second. But he does a lot of things well. His upper body mechanics, I'm actually also a fan of, and he had a couple of categories in the 4.2 range as far as upper body mechanics, decision making out of structure, throw on the run power. I mean, gosh, there's sometimes where he's rolling out and it takes off like a rocket, man. I mean, he just has incredible power no matter which way he's moving. And, I also want to say that his pocket movement kind of impressed me. There were a few times where he actually stepped up and even slid in the pocket. And maybe it was a matter of expectations why I graded this so high, because I just really wasn't expecting to see it. But I graded his pocket movement at a 4.3. And, his ability to fit into any scheme is very high. I gave that a 4.2 just because, I mean, you can't go wrong with a great athlete with a big arm. I mean, that's what everyone's looking for. Everyone's trying to find the next one, right? And, I think that Gavin definitely has that upside. As far as other categories, pocket awareness, I gave a 4. Throw on the run accuracy, I gave a 4. A little bit of room for growth there. Sometimes it's on the money. Sometimes it's a little out there. But, I mean, it's still high-level throwing that he's doing on the run. And then his speed and agility, I gave a 4.15 in both those categories. He is a dual threat guy, and he causes some serious issues for defenses. Game planning for him looks like an absolute nightmare. I mean, on this season, or over the past 2 seasons, I should say, he ran for 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns while still breaking over 2,700 yards in passing both seasons. That's messed up, honestly. It's kind of bricked just how insane his performances and his output has been over the past 2 seasons. And, turning over the page to Mason a little bit here, he agrees that arm power, he has graded at a 4.3. The deep accuracy, he has graded at a 4.25. The upper body mechanics, he has graded at a 4.2, just like me. The agility and speed, he has, I mean, if you combine those 2 categories, he has that combined to an 8.3, because both those categories are at a 5. So that checks out, right, to that 3-star prospect that we're evaluating on this. And Mason overall had to say, quote, great arm strength and a solid vision over the whole field. I like his mechanics and think he's a solid passer. He needs to work on his pocket movement and short throw accuracy. He puts in parentheses, I think because he has so much power. And then he put D2 is a perfect fit for this guy. And, I think that, his short throw accuracy, I think, is what I graded the lowest, which is interesting, right? Because how does his accuracy get better the further down the field he gets? And that's just a matter of fact. And I do agree that he needs to work on that as far as all of his accuracies go. I have that graded at a 3.8 and his medium accuracy at a 3.9. And then his arm velocity at a 3.95. Now, I think that his velocity potential is a lot higher than that. I just don't know if he was necessarily at his best to display that, but he's definitely going to be. And while I think that, he has great control, great poise, great arm power, he's a physical runner as well. He's somebody who ran over like multiple guys. I mean, I think there was one play where he shed like 3 tackles on the way to the end zone. I'm just like, damn, this is a man amongst boys playing right now. And, I think that he has a ton of upside. Now, I do think he will probably end up, to agree with Mason, he's going to end up going the D2 route. But, I mean, this is a guy in a couple years that I'd like to think that the transfer up and playability is definitely there. Now, I jumped around all my categories quite a bit, but overall, he graded out at an 82.3 for myself and an 81.85 for Mason. I'm pretty sure he was all of our number 2 rated QB here. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Coach V, and kind of see what your thoughts are on Gavin and what you think his future looks like or could entail, and kind of react to Mason and I's evaluation as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree with everything you and Mason had to say. I mean, he's just a great athlete and a great frame too. 6'2", 210. He could definitely put on a little bit more weight, but he's much closer to being college ready as a starter, with where he's at. I mean, he's a built athlete who is fast, has a naturally strong arm, afflicts it with just like it's so effortless, right? And there are just some quarterbacks who throw the ball like effortlessly better than a guy who will work so hard at their mechanics and whatnot. He's just like that, you know. And with all the stuff he's been through this season and off season, which we'll talk about later, it's very impressive. But let me just go over all my grades for Gavin here real quick. Frame 8.5, arm velocity 4.2, arm power 4.3, short accuracy of 4. Definitely agree with y'all there. Medium accuracy 4.2, deep accuracy 4.35. Timing definitely improved from junior to senior year 8.2. Lower body mechanics 4.1, upper body 4.3. Decision making in structure 4.2, out of structure a little bit lower of 4. Speed and agility both 4.15. On the run power 4.1, on the run accuracy 3.9, pocket awareness 4.1, and then pocket movement 3.8, and then scheme versatility 4.15 for an overall grade of an 82.75 here. I think, well, I know the first time I got to see Gavin Ishmael play football was his junior year. It was a playoff game here against a Lutheran who went to state that year. And, I mean, he fought in that game. And this was back when Frederick went from wing T to like full on. I mean, they were throwing the ball and they were getting the ball out there and they were lighting it up. And Gavin played a great game against a Lutheran team who would go to state. Now, that game felt like it just went on forever because Lutheran was also scoring a lot. So it felt like they were just going band for like 4 straight quarters. And the final score ended up being a crazy 37-66 loss. And this was a first round playoff game. And so that put me on to Gavin Ishmael. But in that game, 384 passing yards, by the way, on 56 attempts. They really trusted him in that game, which made sense. Threw for 3 touchdowns, no picks, but he also ran for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a big Lutheran team. That team is bigger than a lot of the 4A teams, I feel like, that he played this year. So for him to do that and put up that production against such a good squad showed me a lot. And then going into a senior year here, I mean, he put up numbers, and I don't think it is something. I mean, it's out there now. He had to get surgery, had a partial quad tear in week 1, AC sprain in week 2, got surgery on it back in December 1st, actually. And so he's on the road to recovery now. But even with those injuries, he had a great senior year. Throwing for 2,700 yards, only 4 interceptions, 31 touchdowns. Had a down year running, but still ran for 12 touchdowns, including 697 rushing yards. And that was all with injury. And, I mean, look, we got to make this clear, right? We are not encouraging players to play through injury. But in Gavin's case, he played great football while not even at, I probably wouldn't even say 80 to 90% through the majority of this season. And look, I'm just saying this one more time. We're not encouraging, playing through injuries, because there was another senior quarterback who played through some pretty bad injuries and he just played worse week to week, and it was not good, and he probably should have got the surgery and just called it what it was, and then came back and, competed for a roster spot later. But for Gavin, for him to tough it out and just play great football, and it's not like Frederick has a great offensive line. I mean, they run a little bit more of a spread for a reason. It's because they can't block for super long, but, they've still found a way to be productive and use them correctly. And so we got to give them credit for that at least, because there are plenty of coaches, which we'll talk about here later, that had great athletes and great quarterbacks and just did not use them correctly. And that's why they're not on this list. But they used Gavin correctly. They let him cook a bit out there throwing the ball. And, I don't want to get, too used to doing this, but I got to give a shout out to Jacob Knipp, former UNC Bear, of course, Cody, you know this, and a teammate of our guy Jesse as well over at Ralston Valley. But I do think him working with Jacob Knipp over the offseason did a lot of wonders for his passing game. I mean, he refined a lot of things, and honestly, if it wasn't for the injuries in his senior season, and then he was part of MHP, he didn't get hurt with them, I believe. I think he was hurt at a camp leading up to that. I mean, if he didn't have all of these injuries, he would probably be rated higher. And in most classes, he would probably be our number one quarterback in that class with the combination of athleticism, like speed, throw power, and just overall ability to, really get vertical and force defenses to respect the passing game. So there you go there, but a lot of respect for Gavin Ishmael. He's a warrior. He's a great kid too. Got to see him over at UNC actually. When we were visiting, or sorry, not we, as in me and Cody, but when myself and Gideon were visiting and got to talk to him a bit about the season and whatnot. And, he was in high spirits then. That was about midway through the year, and he just continued to play well. Even in his last game against Montrose, and sorry, Cody, I know you had a bunch of these stats pulled up. I mean, he played well in his last game, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns, also another 128 rushing yards and a touchdown in that game. I mean, this is a guy that's passing for 300 and running for 100. You just don't see that here especially here in Colorado, but all around the country. I mean, that is big time. Those are big time numbers. Isn't that right, Cody?
Yeah, I don't really care where you're from. Those are crazy numbers to put up. And I mean, I feel like, Gavin was another guy. I mean, we just talked about you talked about two great examples. And, just transitioning from Alex Birch at 3 to Gavin at 2 of just like David and Goliath situations sometimes, man. But at the same time, Gavin, with his size, power, and stature, was kind of like, it was more like a Goliath versus multiple Goliaths sometimes with how much he was trying to will that team to win and how much heavy lifting he was doing. And, obviously we talked about one of his teammates in a past top 5, and I definitely think that he benefits. And, their chemistry was fun to watch. That's Burke, by the way, so double back to that top 5 tight end episode. But, I think that just watching him play, and especially watching him, blow this offense open, right, to what it became when you saw them at Lutheran in that crazy game, and, what they were his senior year, I think is something that's truly a testament to his special talent. And, I think it's kind of interesting from that he's also getting coached from a former Matt Lloyd guy as a quarterback who's in a Matt Lloyd system. So there's a lot of interesting intricacies and poetic stuff going on there in some kind of
we
weird
can't
way.
talk about all that on air. Yeah, I get you.
But I think that Nip, he did he helped Gavin out, and so I got to give him a shout out, and also just say that Gavin, I'm really impressed with how he really played these last 2 years, and I'm very excited to see what his next step is, and I hope that he gets the benefit of the doubt, and he gets that investment, and he gets that faith placed in him, so that way he can show what he's really made of.
Yeah, and let's talk about that here, where he's going to play in the future here. So I think we all think he's a D1 talent. Like, the physical traits are there. There's no doubt about it. Has a good frame and whatnot. I mean, you could be a little concerned about the injuries, which I do think impacted his recruiting just a little bit. But at the end of the day, he's a D1 talent. But he's recovering, right? Even then, he has a couple offers, all D2s as of right now. CSUP, I believe, they offered him almost right after he made his surgery post, which is very commendable of them. They see the vision with Gavin Ishmael, so there you go there. Fort Lewis has also offered him as well, and so he has a lot of D2 interest as of right now. Mines offered him a while ago, so there's that as well. I want to say Shadrin offered him as well. So, I mean, he has opportunities to go play on the next level. He has not committed yet. As of today, January 3rd, by the time this episode comes out, I think there's a very good chance that he would have committed by then. But, I mean, he's probably going to have to go to the D2 level, right? Go battle it out. That's just what he has right now. But I think there's a very good chance that he could work his way up into the D1 ranks here. Now, I do think a lot of it also depends on how healthy he could stay, but that's with everyone. I'm just going to knock on wood here soon. But I think there's no doubt that his abilities put him at the D1 level, at the next level at the very least. Isn't that right, Cody?
Yeah, I definitely see the vision for the D1 the path pipeline, whatever you want to call it. And I think that for in Gavin's case, just be patient, man, and get that development, get that strength. And I mean, gosh, he's already at. I mean, we barely even talked about this honestly, but the frame itself, as far as 6'2", 210, it's one of the better. I mean, he's the heaviest guy here. I'm pretty sure out of anyone that we evaluated. So throw on another 10 pounds, and I mean, that's a good size. That's the size of the next level player, and it's something that I have a ton of faith in him, and we're definitely. I mean, we keep saying it for all these guys, but it's just the truth, because we get to meet these guys, we get to talk to them, and we're definitely rooting for him and hoping that he gets to go crazy on that next level. So.
Yes. I mean, the character of a quarterback really matters, though. You know what I mean? Like, being a likable guy and whatnot and a leader actually does matter. So, I mean, I don't know. Just a lot of great players and just great people in this class here. And so, wherever these players go, they'll be in good hands. But before we talk about our number one guy, who's also a great guy, Cody, do you mind if I talk about some honorable mentions? And there's a lot, I feel.
There are some very honorable mentions. Go ahead and give them their flowers, Coach V.
Yes, and they were close because there were I would honestly say there were at least 5 to 8 quarterbacks just battling for that 5th spot with Casey Midcap. I would say it was extremely close here, but I'm just going to go down the line here, starting in the Springs. I'm going to be a little biased, but Hayden Jones out of Discovery Canyon, he graded out at a 79.36, so just 0.7 off, but got to watch him play a lot this year, I feel, and funny enough, I feel like this year, every time I watched Hayden Jones play, he threw the ball a lot, and then every time I didn't watch him play, they ran him a lot. So, I mean, dual threat athlete. I think he's a good D2 guy over there. So, there's definitely that. But he's somebody that just barely missed out here. Drew Brown, out of my alma mater, TCA. I got to watch a lot of him as well. Maybe not the most physically gifted guy, but just another guy who's just a winner. Won state this year, and I mean, the playoff run he had to go through. I mean, this guy, he had to make some big plays for TCA to not only win state, but stay alive throughout the playoffs. Obviously, they blew up Pagosa Springs in the first round, which was a good team, but then they had to play a tough Berthoud team who had another quarterback who was pretty good here, and Skylar Stryker, who's another honorable mention. And, he outdueled him and made some big plays down the stretch here to win that game. So, huge shout out to him. Crew Garrick out of Highlands Ranch was tied with Hayden Jones for my 5th best quarterback spot here. I mean, he's started for them for 2 or 3 years, so it's not like he's a new name at all. But this year, he completely broke out, and I think he has a lot of upside to him. He did not have a lot of interceptions, even though he had 5 games this season where he had 40 or more pass attempts. He got to throw the ball a lot, but, really wanted to highlight him since they run an air raid over there now. And, he was perfect in that system and was very productive for them this year, so I had to shout him out. So there you go. And then just kind of picking this up here, Derek Gordon out of Castleview. If he was used better, he would probably be higher on this list, but another great quarterback. Same with Joe Steiner, same with Tyson Smith, same with Gavin Lockett. Just a lot of quarterbacks that we felt like if they were just better, if they were just better, if the coaching staff was just better and put in better systems, then they would have been able to succeed a lot more. And, a lot of those teams are 5A teams. I'm just going to let that silence sit for a minute there. A lot of those teams were 5A teams who could not provide that support for their quarterback. And then meanwhile, you have Jace Velasquez out of 1A CSCS, who was a great quarterback, put in a great position. Same with Ty Reed out of Delta. They really utilized his strengths a lot as well over there. but just guys who are just barely off the list here. So there you go there. Cody, is there anything you want to add on to these honorable mentions? A lot of guys, a lot of guys in contention for that 5 spot. I mean, that's how it is every year, but this year especially, just a lot of players that were just barely out here, and I think just really narrowing it down with these rubrics help us find the true 5 guy to start our top 5. But anything you wanted to add here, Cody?
I mean, just want to give a shout out to Velasquez and Ty Reed, who, is a state champion, so you can't ever take that away, and what he was able to do for Delta as well. And, so shout out to our lower classification guys, Andrew Brown, Hayden Jones, what they were able to accomplish. Brown, obviously, also a state champion, and getting it done there. And, as far as the upper classifications go, I'm really, really sad at the lost potential of Gavin Lockett, courtesy that coaching staff.
Agreed.
That's probably the biggest travesty for me in all these top 5 evaluations, actually, because the raw potential is so high, and they just, holy cow, they really found a way to screw that up. So Gavin, don't worry, we see you, we see your talent, but holy cow, what a shame, really. Shame on that coaching staff. Because we're not in enough controversy enough, right, Coach B? So, we're just gonna.
Oh yeah, they'll clip it.
They're gonna be like, oh, you don't even know. Anyways, but Gavin, shout out.
But we've seen this coming. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was like a literal train wreck that we were watching for 3 years. It felt,
man.
When he didn't start his freshman year, that's when I knew, oh my God, they're gonna screw this up, aren't they? Like, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? They started some guy who we don't even remember anymore, and not because he didn't throw the ball. And oh my God,
and
he's over at Northern Colorado now,
receivers
which makes
that
it
we've
better.
Evaluated and we like, and tight ends like the talented running back last year. Like, I don't know, it's wild, honestly.
They should have won state with him. Just like with these other lower classification guys. Sorry, I don't want to make this a Gavin Lockett rant, but it kind of has to be.
The incompetency, it's mind-numbing, honestly. So, but Gavin Lockett, shout out. He had a great career despite his circumstances. So, and I'm gonna pin it there. And shout out Mason Kiewit as well for kind of putting Westminster on the map a little bit over the past couple of years. They were a program that, I kind of had to pay attention to, and, it was fun evaluating him in the spring as well as this past fall, and he's a solid player. And Derek Gordon, I do kind of like his game. I think that his game actually translates really, really well to the next level. I just wish he got to show that a little bit more. And Crew Gehrig as well, I evaluated him as like a 2-star prospect, and, he made Highlands Ranch relevant and competitive against some really good teams too. So, and very, very few turnovers. So yeah, the honorable mentions, very honorable, but, I mean, this number 1 guy, Simon, I mean, he kind of stands alone. Do you mind if I begin as the fans are probably going to call it the glazing here?
It's well deserved. Go ahead. I think they already know who it is, but go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't, I don't know what rock you've been living under as we've covered this historic career. And statistically, the greatest quarterback in Colorado high school football history, statistically speaking, that is Austin Madreski out of Mountain Vista High School. What? Oh my gosh. There's so many great moments to talk about, but we got to go back once again to just a little. Mason and I, back in like the first year that we were attending games, we actually got invited to a game. Not trying to throw you under the bus, Coach New. Shout out FanView or whatever. But we were invited to the game against Mountain Vista. It was a home game for our alma mater, Arapahoe. Mason and I were very excited. Arapahoe came in, and they were the favorite in that game. And there's a little freshman quarterback on that team, as they were sticking to a very run-heavy approach, and you could tell the difference in his pass attempts, and they were even doing some kind of wing T stuff until the talent was way too big to ignore here in Austin. And he was that freshman quarterback, and we did not know who he was. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna get up here and lie. We did not know about Austin and what his potential was. But that freshman year, it was only the beginning. Throwing 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 1,500 yards, and only 168 pass attempts. That would literally more than double the next year, as he would throw 348 times his sophomore year, and then 387 times his junior year, and somehow have his best season on 100 less attempts his senior year, with only 271 attempts, throwing for 57 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. Austin, by the way, at 147 passing touchdowns, stands alone atop the mountain of Colorado high school football quarterbacks and the touchdown totals, as well as the yards total at 11,911. And I mean, it's funny because I've had employees who've played at Mountain Vista over the past couple of years since I work in Highlands Ranch, and they've gotten to play, like, these younger players have gotten to play entire halves because Austin, this offense, would just drill another team for 50 points in 1 or 2 quarters and coast. So this number could have actually been incomprehensible if they wanted to really just make it unattainable. And you could argue that it's already unattainable, and I'm glad that it's taken the place of, the was there or whatever. I got to leave it there. And, this is a record that we've tried watching in the past. We thought Braden Dorman might get it a few years ago, and now it's actually a Sevens teammate of Braden who claims that for himself in Austin. But enough of those numbers that everybody can read. Let's talk about the numbers on this rubric and what makes Austin one of the greatest to do it in Colorado high school football history. I mean, 6'5", 205 pounds, starting off with a great frame. That is obviously a next level frame, and he's only going to fill out more. So love the upside of that. But let's talk about his 4-star traits here between myself and Mason here. Look, his short accuracy, 4.45. That is 8.9 if you expand it. Medium accuracy, 4.5. That's a 9. Bang. Frame, I gave him a 9.1. Timing, 8.9. You know what? That's a 9. I don't even know why I'm trying to play like that. That's a 9. His decision-making in structure, 4.6 is what I ended up grading this. That is, I mean, gosh, he runs a college-level offense at a college level. He just really does. And it's very apparent with the way that he has dissected some teams in his career. Versatility, honestly, I know he's not necessarily like, he's not, I wouldn't call him a dual threat, but he's an athletic quarterback, and he has improved his acceleration dramatically. And just with the scheme that he ran, I gave it a 4.6. He's, like I said, running a college scheme, and he's running it well. So those are a ton of it. His pocket awareness, I also gave a 4.45. That is right up there in that 4-star ballpark. I mean, there's just so many things that he does so well. And, Mason is definitely going to echo some of those. He gave his deep accuracy a 4.5. He gave his timing a 9.2. That is one of the highest single category grades of anybody in this entire evaluation process. He gave his pocket awareness a 4.6, his pocket movement a 4.5, his scheme a 4.5. And, he also had this to say. I'm just going to read his excerpt here. Quote, "The improvement in his throwing motion is very noticeable. A stud athlete that can make every throw. His on-field vision goes crazy. Got to see him live 2 times this season, but the Valor game stood out the most. He has the ability to change a game on every play, not to mention he is the Colorado GOAT statistically. I want to see him adjust the throwing motion a bit more and gain a little bit of size." He's saying specifically in his legs. He has the ability to be effective on the next level as long after a red shirt here. As long as he gets a red shirt year, he's the complete package when he comes to the QB. Shout out how good of a guy he is off the field as well. End quote. So, man, I'm like, I'm starting to think we should add a character category for this quarterback, so that way we could tell some of these quarterbacks to buzz off when we give them a 1 out of 5 because they're a tool. But anyways, back to talking about Austin, who's a stand-up guy here. To go through more of Mason's evaluation, I mean, 4.1 arm velocity, 4.2 arm power, 4.25 short accuracy, 4.3 medium accuracy, 4.3 decision-making in structure, 4.2 decision-making out of structure, 4.2 agility, 4 throw on the run. I mean, there's just so much to like that just screams 3-star, and I have a lot of the same ones. I mean, I gave his arm velocity a 4.4. Some of the throws, specifically one that he makes to the pylon against Valor, Simon, I'll let you have the full explanation of that story. But that, I mean, just he's able to just make throws like that. So I gave it a 4.4. His arm power of 4.25, his short accuracy of 4.45, 4.4 deep accuracy. He is super on the money. And, you know, decision-making in structure, like I said, 4.6. Decision-making out of structure, 4.35. And agility, 4.2. He made a ton of strides as far as being able to move in and around the pocket. And, you know, honestly, I just want to say, Austin, it has been an absolute pleasure to cover you through these seasons and whatnot. And we can't wait to cement your legacy and story via an interview. But we are gonna talk about some things that we do want to see improve. And he already knows. He's probably rolling his eyes right now because it's the same thing that Mason talked about. It's the same thing that Coach V is going to talk about a little bit. And that's the mechanics. And we know what the cause is. You know, we'll leave it at that. We're not even trying to promote that. And, you know, for me, I gave his lower body mechanics at 3.65 and his upper body mechanics at 3.45. Honestly, it's insane how serviceable his mechanics became his senior year. I mean, I'd even say his junior year. Obviously, they've been serviceable the whole time. He's thrown mad touchdowns and yards, but holy cow, I feel like there's even more velocity and power and accuracy and timing and just everything could be another notch or two better if, you know, his legs didn't end up getting crossed so much in kind of awkward stances and his base was a little bit more consistent and his arm didn't have a foul hitch. But that might just be how it is till the end of time. But it is still an area of improvement and something that, you know, we definitely frowned upon. Mason kind of had the same idea here. 3.7 lower body mechanics, 3.9 upper body mechanics. And then as far as throw on the run power, Mason graded that a little low at a 3.6. That was a lower category for me at a 4. And then his speed / scramble ability, we both kind of gave it that 2-star kind of thing. His acceleration is good in short bursts, but I mean, he's not somebody who's going to rip off, you know, like a 70-yard, 60-yard run that we've seen from some quarterbacks on a somewhat consistent basis that I think has probably defined this next generation of 4 or 5-star guys in some ways, right? So, you know, those are some areas of improvement for sure. It's the same things that we've been talking about. But, I mean, there's just multiple times where I'm just watching the film. I'm like, oh, my gosh. The velocity, the timing, the placement, just what is going on? He has this insane corner route that he throws in his film. And, you know, he's somebody who I got to watch live I think every year through his career, actually. I might be, it's close. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to think of the game from his sophomore year. But regardless, just a historic career and just an awesome guy off the field. Anybody who I've talked to said that he's just really pleasant to be around and he's super humble. He could be a lot more annoying if he kind of wanted to. I probably would be very obnoxious if I was as talented as Austin. So just want to give him some kudos there. And, you know, I'm gonna tap on the brakes a little bit, let Coach V talk about what he likes in Austin's game here and just kind of his perspective of Austin's story, react to Mason and I a little bit, and also open the door to talk about his college opportunity.
Yeah, look, you got to talk about a lot of the film stuff here. I won't, excuse me, I won't talk about that too much here. I'll just go through all my grades here real quick. Frame 8.7, arm velocity 4.1, arm power 4.25, short accuracy and medium accuracy 4.35, deep accuracy 4.4, timing a 9 easily, lower body mechanics 3.9, upper body 3.8, decision making and structure 4.5, out of structure 4.2, speed 3.7, agility though 4.25, throw on the run power 3.8, throw on the run accuracy 4, pocket awareness 4.6, pocket movement 4.4, and then scheme versatility of 4.5 for a grade of an 84.8. Look, he is the greatest Colorado high school quarterback of all time. Cody, hopefully you pull up those records here, which we could talk about here at the end. But, he's not a dual threat. He's somebody who can run a little bit. He's mobile enough to make defenders miss. Honestly, you would take that out of a 6'5 quarterback, right? But he does throw on time a lot. He can read defenses very well and dissect them and throw the ball with touch and protect his receivers. I did not get to watch him all 3 years or all 4 years, but I got to watch him 3 years here. I think the first time was against Thunder Ridge in the rain and whatnot. But regardless, he's a very talented quarterback. Yes, he does have to work on his mechanics, but I do think, I will say this, the work that he has put into to improve those mechanics as much as he did, that's amazing, because mechanics are really hard to work on, especially when you regress and then you're trying to fix that, and it's a whole thing, right? And it's hard to work on. It just is. And so that honestly might be one of his biggest accomplishments, just continuing to work on his mechanics. And it's at a point where he could play on the college level and start, and I think he would be fine, and on the D1 level, that is. And I mean, that's definitely something we couldn't have said 2 years ago. And so for him to put in that work, just the trajectory of the work that he's put in with those mechanics, that matters. And one day he could be in a very solid spot, a very good spot even with that. I think right now he's in a solid spot with it. But I'm talking about good spot, because that's really the only thing that held him back. Other than that, great IQ. Can make all the throws you want. We've seen him make all the throws you want, in the pocket, out of the pocket. And so with that being said, I mean, that's really all I have to say about him. But I do want to talk about the memories here, because this is probably the last time I'll get to talk about Austin Majewski here, because on a podcast episode. Well, maybe not. Maybe one more time, but we'll save that for the future here. But honestly, I mean, it has been truly a lifetime achievement for us here personally to be able to cover somebody as great, as talented as an Austin Majewski. And he's just been a great guy, because here's the thing. The first time I heard about Austin, it wasn't about his game on the field. Shout out Brandon Bordeaux and EPO and Coach Stanley Richardson, who's now over at Montbello, the head coach over there. But I remember talking to them, and, they trained a bunch of quarterbacks, or they were training a bunch of players and quarterbacks, players like a Beckham Kritza, he's going to go to Penn State, a DJ Bordeaux, who's now in Georgia and has $1 million D1 offers, Power 5 offers, that is, right? And those players, those quarterbacks also trained with Austin, and they're all around the same age. But the thing that stood out to me was just how much Brandon and Coach Stan will just talk about the character of Austin Majewski, how much of a leader he is, how much of a competitor he is. And that to me always stood out to us. To me, I shouldn't say us, but to me specifically. And so when he started balling out his freshman year, that was no surprise to me. That was that was something that I kind of expected. I didn't expect him to play as soon, but for that to happen, that was absolutely big time. And then just to be able to see him continue to work on his game, get better year in, year out. The first game I got to watch against Thunder Ridge, he played great in that game, but it was unfortunately a heartbreaker in overtime, in the pouring rain, by the way, where he still made the plays he had to make. It just came down to, the defense for Mountain Vista, which wasn't as well-rounded as this year's defense, obviously. They're also very inexperienced as well. And so that was a tough heartbreaker. Next year, after that, his junior year, me and I think Gino, we got to watch him play at Valor versus Valor, and I believe he came up short against them as well. Couldn't beat him. Tough game. It was what it was. Then following year, and this is all in-person stuff, by the way, his senior year, this is the last season, myself and Mason got to go watch him play against Valor, a game where, there were a couple records that were in the air for him to pass and hopefully get in that game. And he had the most elite game that I have ever seen from a Colorado high school football quarterback against Valor Christian, which they won 62-21, by the way, which is something that no Highlands Ranch team done. And probably one of the greatest moments of the podcast. I'm just saying this, Cody, and you should have been there. We told you. But, you had your duties, so we get it. But when the announcer went on his little rant at the end and said, no other team in Highlands Ranches did it but this Mountain Vista team as the first Highlands Ranch team to beat Valor Christian ever, I got chills. One of the greatest moments in podcast history. In that game, 22 of 25, 425 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 30 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown in that game. Made every single throw you could want, stepping up in the pocket, on the run, throwing a tight window on that out route left, I'll remember. Always. Such a tight window there. He squeezed it in there. Great timing. Great catch, too, by the way, against a very talented Valor team. I mean, it was, for him, it was probably feeling like an out-of-body experience, but it was amazing just seeing how many different throws he could make and just how explosive and deadly and truly lethal he was in that game. He only missed 3 passes, and I believe at half, he didn't miss any passes. He was perfect. And, I mean, just the amount of respect this guy commands from not only his team, but the surrounding community, the state. Everyone knows him as a great guy. That's not something that's up for debate at all. This is the same guy that him and his teammates, they went out and supported Mountain Vista girls flag football team in the playoffs as well. Got to talk to him a bit there, and he was just happy to be out there and support. And I mean, just a stand-up guy. And even in this game against Valor, got to talk to the Valor athletic director a bit, and he was just shaking his head. He was like, man, he's just one of those players. And that's coming from the Valor Christian athletic director. Just saying how great of a game he was. He was just on it. And honestly, one of the best performances I've ever seen. And then even this last game of his career that he had against Fairview, which was a crazy game played at 2 different locations in the playoffs. They lost that one 45-49, but he left it all out there. 303 yards, 5 touchdowns to throw 2 picks, but it was what it was. Also had 63 rushing yards and a touchdown in that game. 6 touchdowns in a playoff game that they lost. I mean, he left it all out there. And, he's just such a great guy. We are lucky, truly, to be able to cover him on the podcast. Some of the best moments that we've had on this podcast were watching Austin Madreski and his teammates play and go compete. And, it's truly special that we were able to be part of this history and in this capacity even. And, I could already hear everyone complaining like, oh, you glazer and whatnot. But, I mean, you got to give flowers where it's due. This is possibly the last time I get to talk about him on the podcast. So had to make it count. But, yeah. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think he's going to do great on the next level. I mean, we should probably talk about that. How about you go ahead and talk about that, Cody?
Yeah, so he's, as you kind of alluded to earlier, he will be taking a handful of records with him. He has the most passing touchdowns in a season with 57 this past season, like I said, on like a bunch of halves. And he just mashed the former passing touchdowns career record. He actually beat it by 17 with 147 total passing touchdowns. And he also took the crown of most passing yards in a career with 11,911. So, I mean, it's just historic is what it is. And, we're definitely really proud and excited that, he was able to do those things and just go nuts, man. He also has the completion record for a career with 814, and the funny thing is that he does not have the attempts record. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he does not have. He is 13th in attempts. So, yeah, if that doesn't tell you just how efficient this guy is, 5th all time in career completion percentage here at 69.34. Nice. And, I think that honestly, the University of South Dakota is getting an absolute steal here with getting Austin. I think that is a high level pickup for them. And I think that, when I think of Austin as a caliber of player, no disrespect to University of South Dakota, but it's not necessarily the first school that I would have thought to mind. But there's somebody that obviously had faith in him and got to him early, and he has faith in their program. And I think that it does. I honestly don't think it really matters where he would go, but his impact, is going to be seen on the college level. He is going to start games as a D1 college football quarterback. And it's only a matter of time, really, more than anything. And honestly, I could see him, pending. We see all kinds of crazy stuff as far as opportunities that first years get and still can keep their red shirt, right? So, I think he's somebody where if the cards fall in the right spot, he's somebody who could see the field sooner than later. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but I think as far as just somebody who I could trust to run a college offense, I would not be worried asking Austin to do that. And I think that our scores reflect that. Coach V had an 84.8, Mason had an 84.35, myself had an 85.35 at a total 84.83. It was pretty clear. When Mason and Coach V attended that game, it was decided. It was decided that night. Yeah, Austin, he's the best quarterback in this class. And, it was interesting because I know in the preseason, we were floating around like, if Birch has a decent season, and he was coming off that MHP performances and he did really well and obviously still made this list. And it's funny because like Bryce Reel and Casey Midcap weren't even really in those talks, and here they are in the top 5. And like Coach V said, in a lot of other years or with a full slate health or, other conditions, Gavin Ishmael would have been, I can think of past quarterback classes where he definitely would have been the number one guy, but it was not his year. It was no one else's year but Austin here. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to do on the D1 level. And I think that when he gets his chance, he's going to light it up, honestly. And it's only a matter of time before he gets tossed the keys. Coach V, I remember we obviously react to commitments when we see them, especially for big name guys like this. And, I don't want to put any connotations to it, but I definitely think that we were a little bit surprised, but in the end, definitely agreed that, South Dakota is getting a steal here.
Yeah, you got to take the offers that you get. They were, I think, the last D1 to offer him, and he committed pretty quickly after that. And South Dakota, they made it to the semis for the first time just this last year and lost to a Montana State team who, could definitely win it all, the national championship on the FCS level. So it's not like he's not going to go to a good program. He's going to a great program in South Dakota over there. But, and you know what? I might just be clip farming here, or clip hunting here, but I just, I got to put this out there. CU and CSU, I think they're going to regret not offering Austin Majewski here. I think they're going to regret it deeply. And I'm even going to go a step further. Say he gets a start at South Dakota, starts for a couple seasons. He is definitely a guy who could play very well for them and then go to a FBS team that could be a college football playoffs contender. Very Cam Ward-like, going from Incarnate Ward and moving on and all that stuff, right? And I could just see that path there. He still has a lot of work to put in. That's like 5 or 6 years in the future as well, too. But I would not be surprised if this is a quarterback that starts in the college football playoffs. and CU and CSU regrets it.
And PMC is throwing a watch party for that game.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely, yeah. Those are later problems, though. We could talk about that later. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for him. Just seeing how hard he's worked to continue to improve his game, despite already playing at a high level, him being a leader, having those intangibles. He's also like 6'5" and has all the physical intangible stuff that you want, physical skills. There's no real limit to it. I think it's going to come down to opportunity, how he competes, and how a couple other things may go as well that may not always be in his control. But at the end of the day, I think you and I both have a lot of faith in him. He's the number one quarterback in this class, and I mean, the number one quarterback in Colorado high school football history.
Headphone user alert. Damn straight! Oh man, I'm getting like pumped here just talking about the prospect that Austin is, and just what a quarterback class. Honestly, this is a really fun quarterback class to cover.
Yes, elite class.
Oh yeah, no, this is a fantastic class, and a class that has a lot of class as well off the field. There's a little double entendre for you, listeners. Yeah, Coach V, if you don't have anything else to add on to Austin, I'll recap our top 5 guys and do our little outro here.
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Once again, shout out Mason, who did provide a ton of analysis and has been watching film. And it's nice to have a third voice, honestly, on these top 5 evaluations. It makes things a little interesting. But our top 5 class of 2025 quarterbacks here in the state of Colorado goes as follows, starting at 5 and working up. Is Casey Midcap, the Drake commit out of Ray High School and the first ever 1A quarterback to make a top 5 list. Number 4 is the still uncommitted Bryce Reel out of Mesa Ridge, the Hooper, and maybe future Gridiron star. Number 3 is Horizon's very own Alex Birch, committed to Colorado School of Mines. Congrats once again. By the way, get those GPAs up, by the way, and try and have the brains of this guy here. Number 2, Gavin Ishmael out of Frederick High School. And the number 1 quarterback out of Mountain Vista High School, committed to the University of South Dakota, Austin Madreski. Congratulations on history to all these quarterbacks here. And, these are some names that as we move forward in our Hall of Fame down the road, these are definitely going to be some names that are going to be brought up year after year for some eligibility and some push there. But, that is a topic for another day. In the meantime, you better double back and listen to the rest of our top 5 series with the best rubrics that we have ever made and used throughout all of these positions. And it has been a blast covering this with Coach V and Mason as well, and doing things a little bit different this year as well. And we're excited to, cover these players and continue to cover these stories anywhere that you listen to podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. I'm pretty sure we got posted there, as well as YouTube. So anywhere that you are, follow, subscribe if you're on YouTube, turn on notifications, go into your settings, so that way whenever we got content. We also got some visual content for you on the social medias, whether that's Facebook, Playmakers Corner, Instagram, at Playmakers Corner, Twitter/X, at Playmaker Corner. For the time being, as far as this recording goes right now, and when this episode comes out, TikTok will still exist. So at Playmakers Corner on there while we still got it. But definitely follow us on YouTube to continue to see those highlights and that kind of video form content as well. And, just be sure to follow us on all those socials, and you'll get to see a ton of updates here. We're excited for the way that we're going to approach our, coverage of Colorado high school football, tackle football heading forward. And we also got a ton of college flag football as well as Colorado high school flag football content for you, interviews, and just talking film, prospects, previews, and the whole 9, while also talking about the national scale and the best of the best at what they do and continuing to grow that sport. But for the first time in a while, on a joined effort episode. I have been one of your co-hosts here, Cody Stoffer.
And I'm the other one, Coach V.
Signing off. Peace.